offered up as a sacrifice to the most feared monster in the world, a forced marriage that everyone believed would be his ultimate end. Abandoned by his own family in the claws of the tyrant dragon, he mastered forbidden magic to exact revenge on everyone. Yet at the peak of power, he discovered his bride's true sacrifice. Turning back time through a supreme spell, he gets another chance. Our guy makes the insane decision to actually marry the dragon. Now the outcast mortal will rule alongside the most powerful beast, dominating the realm as the legendary creature's consort. So drop a like on the video and subscribe for more. Harsh whispers echo through the mansion as the marriage between outcast Ferda Rosnova and the feared Archduke Valdrova is set. Knowing exactly what that means, the young man looks down at the table. The announcement reveals Ferda Rosnova's union with the Archduke. For a noble in his position, that command acts as a death sentence. Facing this reality, our guy has only two possible choices for his future. Rejecting the engagement means getting banished from his family forever. Despite these tough options, his biggest wish was simply to belong to that clan. Waking up from a nightmare, he takes a deep breath after the shah. Life was harsh for the third illegitimate son of a noble knight family. Servants gossip in the hallways that his daily training efforts are completely useless. Nobody ever backed him up, yet he endured everything in silence. Training without rest, the kid kept working to improve his skills. All of this was done in hopes of gaining some recognition from his father. Right after that, someone comes up to talk to him about a rumor. Our guy gets criticized harshly for trying to train with a sword. Lying on the ground, he hears that he never had the right to try that. As he fights back tears, the young man hears insults about his birth. Watching from a distance, the rest of the family just stands by. Through the window, the man turns his back without showing any interest. Alone in the dark, he realizes he never had his family's attention. The young man tells the man that he is leaving the family. The man calmly replies that it is fine, leaving the place behind. The kid stands by the gate. He hears that he is no longer part of the Rosnova family. Standing at the gate, he regrets all of his past effort. His hands shake as they show signs of intense wear. Swearing never to forgive them, he clenches his fist in anger. A magic circle appears as he decides to make the man pay dearly. Walking alone at night, the young man now considers himself a mage. When he awakens as a mage at age 18, he comes to terms with his past. Sitting on the ground, he remembers starting late compared to others. Other students show up to mock his lack of ability. Ignoring their taunts, he lets his mana overflow with power. A red circle forms in his hands, fueled by hatred and revenge. A powerful explosion rocks the area. He realizes that the more he hates someone, the stronger he becomes. Reaching the sixth circle through revenge, he decides to return to the Rosnova home. Using his powers, he makes the servants who mocked him turn on each other. Next, he causes the eldest and second sons to destroy one another. Finally, he attacks his own father while ignoring pleas to stop. Ferda tells his father to take a good look at the Rosnova family he built. After witnessing all that destruction, the man is left completely shocked. Every connection to the Rosnova family permanently vanishes. Ferda feels that all of this was still not enough to quench his thirst. Several warriors draw their swords to stop his advance. Everyone calls him an enemy of the continent and promises to bring him to justice. Ferda survives once more and reaches the 8th circle, the highest realm for humans. Becoming an archmage, he realizes that people still hate him deeply. Ferda wants to reach the 9th circle in the demigod realm for absolute power. The spellbook reveals that the final ingredient needed is a dragon's heart. He quickly realizes fate has set up a massive twist in his path. The required target for his evolution is the red dragon Valdrova. Ferda arrives at the creature's mountain lair under the moonlight. A drop of blood falls as he approaches the dragon. Valdrova realizes the person coming to take her life is her fiancée. Blood drips from Ferda's mouth as he deals with the situation. He coldly demands that the tyrant Valdrova accept her death at his hands. The dragon questions why they call her a tyrant. Valdrova argues she never left her lair and cannot grasp where the hate comes from. Ferda angrily asks if she truly thinks she did nothing wrong. Ferda points at the creature and calls her the root of all his misery. Valdrova asks if that is her fault and gets an immediate yes. Our guy shouts that he was exiled because she wanted a fiancé. He complains that a wild dragon wanted a human mate and ruined his life. Valdrova moves her paw, leaving Ferda wondering what just happened. He notices that move bought him enough time to gather his mana. The young man prepares to land one final strike in this clash. The creature's paw moves toward him once again. Magic surges around the young man, leaving him injured. Blood trickles down Ferda's face after taking the hit. Valdrova digs her claws into her own chest, wounding herself badly. The young man is stunned to see the dragon hurt herself and tries to understand why. He recalls that his spell specifically requires a dragon's heart. Ferda screams for her to stop before she destroys her own heart. He thinks that heart is his only shot at reaching the ninth circle. The young man uses a magic spell to try and prevent the destruction. An attack strikes the creature directly on the head. An explosion occurs and Ferda complains about the dragon. Valdrova starts staggering as blood flows out. Her wounds keep worsening, making the young man panic. Valdrova takes a violent hit, and the young man calls it utter madness. He spots the dragon's heart inside her chest. The creature hands over the intact heart, telling him to take it. Our guy fails to understand why Valdrova is acting this way. He asks why she went this far when she could have just killed him. The creature responds that her very existence ruined his life. Valdrova admits she hated herself for a long time due to her violent blood. She hated the urge to destroy everything and the unstoppable monster she was. The dragon recalls losing control and spreading ruin everywhere she went. Her tearful eyes reveal the deep suffering she carried inside. Valdrova remembers wiping out villages and terrifying innocent people. She says everything would be solved if she died before hurting so many. The dragon regrets that her dream of happiness caused suffering to innocence. Tears stream down her face as she accepts her final fate. Valdrova hopes he finds happiness since everyone suffered because of her. The dragon's body collapses as she makes the ultimate sacrifice for him. The young man feels an odd tightness in his chest as he watches this unfold. Tasting a bitter sensation, he wonders what this feeling is. He gets annoyed at her, claiming she tries to mess with his head to the end. He brushes the feeling aside, remembering he needs this to open the ninth circle. The young man holds the essence of a dragon that lived for eternity. A single drop falls from that heart as he plans to absorb its power. Our guy shouts with all his strength that he will transcend humanity and become a demigod. A massive flash of light obliterates everything around the place. Moments later, he finds himself floating in a dark realm, confused. Looking at himself, he wonders how he ended up here after consuming the heart. Around him appears a figure trapped in red threads like an endless swamp. Observing the woman's silhouette, he wonders if this is a side effect of the heart. A massive surge of emotion suddenly overwhelms his mind. The shock is so intense that lightning sparks above, making him wonder if it belongs to Valdrova. His legs give out, forcing him down onto his knees. Looking up in fear, the young man realizes he finally sees something else. An ancient despair appears before him, making his own pain seem meaningless. Amidst all this, he senses a deep loneliness that just wanted to embrace the world. Realizing his anger was trivial, the young man cries and asks what he has done. As he looks back, he remembers what he truly wanted in the past. He asks himself if his goal was ever revenge, becoming an archmage, or rising as a demigod. The kid concludes he wanted none of that as he remembers his childhood. He simply wished to build a humble family and live in peace. Staring at his childhood drawings, the young man sees what truly mattered. A girl with horns and red hair gazes at the scenery through a stone arch. Ferda regrets that his whole journey turned out to be completely pointless. Seeing the dead girl beside him, he wonders what the point of anything is now. Tears fall down his face as he faces the bloody scene before him. A powerful ninth circle spell is cast under the name of Desire. Ferda uses the spell's magic to travel back in time. He wakes up suddenly with a look of pure shock. The young man tries to figure out where he is while sitting in a room. His father, Arambalt Rosnova, scolds him for being distracted during their talk. Ferda remembers that in the past, his father ended up dying in ruin. Arambalt announces that his marriage to Archduke Valdrova has been decided. The father warns him that he knows full well what that means. Arambalt adds that the family will suffer consequences if he rejects the deal. Ferda gets up from his chair as he realizes he really traveled back in time. He surprises his father by stating that he understands the situation. The young man decides to accept the engagement with Archduke Valdrova this time. Ferda places a hand over his chest and formally agrees to the deal. Hugen Rosnova hears with surprise that his brother accepted the engagement. The second son walks through the mansion, commenting on the unexpected choice. Arambald shares that Ferda dismissed the servants and locked himself in his room. Ferda smiles, thinking there is still time for a brotherly chat before leaving. Hugen walks down the hallways as he approaches his brother's room. The second brother bursts through the door, complaining that Ferda is still inside. His eyes widen in surprise when he sees that Ferda is already dressed. Hugen admits he expected to see his brother crying over the trip. Our guy looks at the mirror and ponders his brother's unexpected reaction. Ferda mentions he sent the servants away and must learn to dress himself now. Hugen smirks, remembering the engagement's rumor, and asks if he knows what it means. Ferda sarcastically answers that it means getting kicked out of the family. His brother gets shocked and warns him that he will die if he goes through with this. Ferda replies that he is already aware of the danger waiting for him. The story recalls that Valdrova's first fiancé was the Empire's third prince. That fiancé was a flawless man who gave up the throne for the tyrant dragon. Shortly after arriving for the engagement, the prince met a violent end. The prince had a nervous, terrified smile right before disaster struck. The fiancé got beaten into a bloody pulp the very next day. Hukin points a finger, asking if he thinks he can survive where the prince failed. The man waves his hand, saying he will not stop anyone walking into the dragon's den. He grabs his brother's coat, threatening to take his head if he runs away. Hukin wraps up his warning, telling his brother to watch his attitude. Hukin accuses the kid of staring at their older brother's wife for everyone to see. Our guy acts surprised, asking what the other man is talking about. Hukin tries to rush forward in anger, but Ferda reminds him to hold back. The young man notes the journey is long, so he prefers to leave now. The butler says goodbye and cries while holding a handkerchief to his face. He tells the young man that serving him all these years was an honor. Our guy thinks if that honor were real, the butler would not have poisoned his food. He recalls growing up thinking he was sick just because of weak health. Realizing the servants were never on his side, he feels like snapping his neck. The young man grabs the butler by the collar before heading out. He thanks him for his hard work, noting taking care of him was not easy. The carriage leaves with the young man, who asks them to mind the family. Sitting inside, his mind is at peace because he got his revenge in the past life. The vehicle rattles along the road through green scenery. The anger and thirst for vengeance completely fade from inside him. The magic used before felt like a drug, triggering intense feelings. At first it was exciting, but his tolerance grew out of control. That madness acted like a drug, bringing massive euphoria. His heart beats fast just remembering that strength. The young man opens his eyes with a serious look inside the carriage. Our boy says he no longer wants to live like that. Feeling a bit of peace after so long is not a bad thing. He assumes this way he will not need to awaken as a mage again. A wooden sign warns that entering the Duke's territory is forbidden. The young man sits on his luggage next to the sign on the road. The driver runs away in terror, thinking a dragon would show up. He realizes he must learn magic if he wants to survive in this place. A breeze blows, carrying a green leaf through the air. Looking into the distance, he senses someone approaching. A white-haired maid introduces herself as Ruri, serving Lord Valdrova. She asks if he is Lord Ferda Rosnova, and the kid confirms it. The maid lets him know she will escort him to the castle. Empire citizens believed in the absolute strength of their nation. The eastern region was ruled by monsters and an unconquerable land. The advance of these monsters was stopped by the red dragon Valdrova. Carrying his luggage, the young man wonders why they call the lord a demon dragon. People spread rumors that he secretly raises a monster army, yet nobody dares say a word when standing right before the dragon. The maid steps up right behind him to reassure the young man. She assures him that while she is by his side, no one will dare attack. Ferda asks how much further it is, and the maid says it takes 2 hours on foot. The maid adds that flying alone would get her there in just 10 seconds. Watching quietly, Ferda concludes his maid is definitely not ordinary. The story reveals she inherited dragon blood, hiding her horns as elite dragons spawned. The young man plants his cane into the ground as he makes a call. He suggests flying to the lair, but the maid points out she would have to carry him. Ferda tries to play it cool, but admits he just does not want to be carried. The maid stands still, staring at our guy holding his bag and cane. He agrees to walk and asks for a break, but she tells him to keep going. Ferda makes a tired face as he silently accepts the order. The sun shines bright over the rocky mountain where their trip ends. Ferda's hand knocks on the large metal door of the castle. The maid announces the fiancé has arrived and the heavy doors open. Ferda feels massive pressure behind the door, wondering if a dragon's aura is always this heavy. The maid asks him to wait outside while she receives the message. A stern warning echoes stating that no one has the right to stand before him. The maid clasps her hands and says she will deliver Duke Valdrova's message. A giant dragon appears, acknowledging his effort to reach this far. The creature adds he has no interest in a forced marriage and tells him to leave. Ferda is shocked, wondering how he gets sent back after traveling all this way. Thinking back to his past life, our guy remembers he would have left instantly. Taking a new stance, the fiancé declares he is here on his own free will now. Determined to proceed, he states he has no intention of backing down. The maid hears his response and cold-bloodedly says she will pass it along. A large bag filled with shiny coins appears right in front of him. The maid offers the gold, explaining the place grants wealth to those restarting. The visitor sits on a pile of gold beside a dragon, lying on the coins. The fiancé claims he cares nothing for power or wealth. He raises his hand and says he only cares about one thing. Our guy reinforces that his sole focus is the deal with Duke Valdrova. Hearing this, the maid sighs and closes her eyes. Clenching her fist, she makes a drastic call. Pointing her finger, the maid orders him to leave immediately. The fiancé notes the message was short, but the maid says she speaks for herself. Beginning to transform, the maid displays claws and horns. A powerful green aura explodes around her as she turns into a dragon. Sensing the pressure, the young man realizes this is the raw power of a dragon. The dragon states she knows mortals obsessed with power and ambition. Shocked, the fiancé realizes this is why the third prince died. The maid recalls the prince was full of schemes to exploit Duke Valdrova. Her golden eyes judge the fool's greed. Heavy footsteps echo as the dragon criticizes the kid's arrogance. Knocked to the floor, our guy hears her say everyone is equal to her. Clutching his chest, he listens to the warning about the prince's fate. The young man forces a smile, trying to hide his panic. He speaks his name, swearing he is telling the absolute truth. Then he adds he was not forced to come, nor does he seek profit. A past memory shows a dragon giving her own heart to a selfish man. With glowing hands, the young man vows to stay by her side this time. He reasserts that he arrived to act as Valdrova's fiancé. Our guy argues that as husband and wife, they should talk directly. Hearing that, the maid clenches her fist, enraged by his nerve. She rushes at the young man with rage, screaming over the audacity. The strike stops mid-air right in front of the fallen youth. The maid asks for a moment to report exactly what the man said. She repeats his words, explaining he declared himself Valdrova's fiancé. Leaning on the floor, the maid states that is precisely what was said. She addresses her master as one of the 12 rulers and a symbol of power. The red-haired figure listens to it all, asking if that is true. Archduchess Valdrova sits on her throne, curious about who he is. The maid asks her master how she would describe the man based on what she saw. She replies that the human seemed pathetic, struggling just to make it here. The servant adds he is hideous and suggests getting rid of him now. Valdrova corrects her, saying his face is attractive enough to make women cry. Hearing this, the maid gets embarrassed and silently watches. Right after, she notes the man has something unusual about him. The servant recalls that as a dragon descendant, scaring mortals is easy. Yet she points out he showed no fear even when she unleashed her aura. Because of this, she claims the human can look her master in the eyes. Hearing the news, the Archduchess smiles with excitement. She finds it great to encounter someone who can meet her gaze. The dragon believes she can finally talk to a human normally. She squeezes her hand, pleased with the idea. The maid listens with confusion, wondering if that qualifies as normal. Her master confirms she intends to treat him that way. Shortly after, the maid tells our guy the master will proceed with the engagement. She guides the guest through the castle corridors to his assigned room. The young man looks around the chamber, noting how well kept it is. He asks who handles cleaning, and the maid replies she does it all herself. Next, she mentions she's the master's only servant here. The guest asks if he is merely a guest and not a fiancé. The maid displays hatred toward humans, acting like a guard dog. The young man asks to set hierarchy aside, asking when the wedding takes place. The maid answers that the ceremony takes place in 1 month. The event will be held quietly inside the dragon's lair. The young man understands and quietly adjusts his gloves. He figures a month's time should be plenty. The maid just watches the young man without saying a word. She warns that the ceremony will not be handed over, acting as a test. The maid points out that a ruler's partner needs proper status. She demands he prove his qualification for the engagement. The young man shows concern, thinking the situation is tough. He asks if this requirement came from the master's order. The maid states it is her call because her master is too kind. She demands that our guy prove the potential of his weak body. She warns that without it, he will not be recognized as the Archduke's partner. The young man remains deep in thought, facing her demand. He reflects that his fiancée has a dedicated person nearby. Our guy praises her focus and putting her master first. An injured dragon holds a glowing heart in her claws before the young man. The young man asks if he needs to level up until he becomes emperor of the empire. He thinks it is ridiculous having to show potential to surpass an emperor. Our guy accepts the demand and gets the message. The maid gets annoyed, asking why he is so relaxed. She asks if he takes dragons seriously or if he lost his mind. He asks her to calm down and promises to show his skills in 1 month. The maid grows suspicious, wondering how he can be so confident. The castle sits under the moonlight during the night. The young man paces around the room thinking about proving his potential. He remembers that mages are rare in this region and his experience is unique. The kid concentrates energy in his hand, believing he can repeat the feat. Initial meditation is the most crucial step for defining the mana circuit. Most mages pick the blue circle because it offers a calm and safe path. The red circle emerges through turbulent and unstable emotions. Our guy remembers becoming an archmage in the past using only hatred. He recalls walking dangerous paths alongside fallen allies. The young man grits his teeth with a serious expression. He decides to take a different path to keep his mind steady. A week passes inside the castle tower. A young man sits on the room floor to start his meditation. Our guide tries to form a blue circle by gathering energy between his hands. The attempt fails, and he sighs, noting that he failed again. He realizes forming a blue circle takes 3 years with 3 weeks left. The maid enters the room carrying a tray of food. He says he is eating while reflecting that nothing has changed. The kid eats his soup, saying he will succeed if he keeps trying. He notices that no real progress has taken place. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking violently. The young man asks what that shaking is. The maid answers that her master is clearing monsters in the far east. Odrova is in the middle of a battle. The kid says he wants to see that battle in person. The maid warns him that it is better if he does not go. She explains that a human mind could not handle that scene. Our guy hears that he might wet himself before the ceremony. He says no. The young man states he wants to watch that fight with his own eyes. A beam of energy rips through the sky over the mountains. The two fly through the air carried by magical wings. Shortly after, they reach their destination in the forest. The kid falls to the ground dizzy after moving at that speed. The maid tells him to look elsewhere instead of staring at her. She asks him to stand up and look straight ahead. The young man opens his eyes wide and looks forward. A dark and heavy aura takes over the entire surrounding scene. His eyes widen in complete shock at that overwhelming energy. Right ahead lies the location where Valdrova is fighting her battle. Several colossal creatures clash violently, throwing sparks. A winged creature emerges from the flames in an explosion. Gigantic monsters open their jaws, releasing a high-pitched roar. Red claws tear through another creature's hard scales during battle. Sparks and grinding sounds echo as the monsters clash. The red creature raises its neck, releasing a piercing screech. Right after that, she fires a blast of flame straight downward. The maid watches everything as strong winds blow through her dress. The beast opens its mouth wide, roaring with full strength in the area. Flames cover the mountain peak as the roar echoes all around. The young man puts his hands to his head, feeling the heavy pressure. He collapses to the ground, unable to withstand such raw force. The creature lets out a monstrous roar that shakes the environment. Our guy catches his breath as she asks if he understands the situation. The winged maid calls it ridiculous for a human to pair with a dragon. Looking at the dragon, she states that is the real form of his bride. The maid observes the young man trembling on the ground beside her. She thinks to herself that he is trembling just as she warned before. The girl explains that a red dragon's blood carries an evil essence. A dark dragon head appears with glowing markings and flames in its mouth. She adds that this bloodlust leaves them caught in crossfire every day. That moment proves humans and dragons can never truly become one. The maid walks away, believing her master will see living with a human is futile. The young man's lips part slightly as he stays quiet. To the maid's surprise, the kid smiles and calls it magnificent. She is shocked to realize he is not terrified but deeply impressed. Losing her patience, the girl asks if he is some kind of lunatic. Night falls as the moon shines over the imposing castle structure. Lying in bed, the young man reflects that he knew what to expect. He realizes that the pressure of that roar battered his entire body. The maid shows up worried, trying to bring the young man back to reality. He wakes up thinking his mind is intact, and he will lose a day if he fails to open the circle. With open arms, our guy asks himself why he wanted to witness that battle. Sitting on the grass, he looks back on what he saw during the day. A terrifying memory causes his eyes to widen in shock. The dragon appears amidst intense flames, and he still wants to watch. Hidden in the east, the warrior destroys monsters to protect her beloved. Her footsteps remain steady in red armor along the rough path. The warrior charges forward, wielding her sword in the ruined landscape. He finds all of that magnificent for someone like her and himself. His lips move slightly as he stays completely focused. Suddenly, a strange sensation merges alongside a red circle. He rejects that mana, refusing to repeat the mistakes of the past. A drop falls, creating reddish ripples in a reflection of blood. The warrior's image appears as he feels a strong surge in his chest. Remembering the battle clues his mana circuit with an unusual emotion. His eyes close while he tries to identify that feeling. Sitting in focused position, he notices the energy is very unstable. His hands position themselves around that spiraling light. The young man focuses deeply, radiating a strong energy around him. He compresses and spins the energy faster in a whirlpool shape. His hands hold a magic circle as he attempts to reshape energy into a single ring. Our guy decides to change his future so past mistakes never happen again. The maid is amazed to see he managed to open his mana circuit in one night. The young man points out her sharp vision for noticing it right away. He notes he pulled it off because he is not ordinary, asking her opinion. The maid confirms he meets minimum specs but notes there is a long way to go. The young man asks if there is a spot nearby where he can practice magic. An overview shows the brand new outdoor training ground. The dirt ground gets swept nicely with a broom to keep it clean. The maid reports she built a training field exactly as requested. The young man applauds, impressed by her building it all in half a day. He explains he wants to train efficient mana control to avoid wasting power. Confused, the maid wonders if dragons also face this kind of issue. Soon she finds it odd to train mana control like someone training their breathing. She notes any dragon would consider this training primitive. She nods in agreement with the idea as a dragon descendant. Listening silently, our guy thinks a naturally gifted person would never grasp human effort. He starts walking, saying he would rather go train than watch breathing practice. The young man stops and closes his eyes to begin concentrating. He recalls mana control aims for stability, but his circuit works differently. Our guy balances his emotions without losing control to overcome the clash. He remembers taking 2 years to draw mana and condense it into a sphere. He explains that in his past life this took sweat, but now takes 2 minutes. On his fingertip, he manifests a small glowing red sphere. The maid watches in awe as he forms a perfect sphere with 0 wasted mana. He summons additional spheres around his outstretched hand. Shooting targets appear in the background as he sets up projectiles for the test. He fires a powerful mana blast directly at the center target. The impact triggers a violent explosion that destroys the target. He notes with satisfaction that the target survived the initial test. The maid stares intently with a serious expression. She reports the events regarding Lord Ferda to a woman sitting on the rocks. The horned woman asks what her impression of the newcomer was. The maid warns the kid was flawless, making him look suspicious and dangerous. She says no human reaches that level without errors, suspecting he hides something. The horned woman is surprised by her praise for the human and partially agrees. She states she chose to trust him since the boy claimed honest intentions. The maid thinks her master suffered too much at human hands in the past. She wants to test his real motives now that her leader opened her heart again. The maid squeezes the edge of her dress, focused on a plan. The maid tells the leader that since they have a chance, they should entrust that to him. The horned woman asks if she is truly referring to that thing. The young Ferda Rosnova makes his official entrance into the room. Several lords of the Far East Front Alliance whisper at the round table. One lord complains that the Archduke called a meeting while monsters could attack anytime. Another responds that the newly decided fiancé is arriving for the meeting. The lords complain an 18-year-old acts like a king just with the Archduke backing him. Lord Olvera Concilis crosses his arms thinking the kid will not last long there. He concludes that fiancé will soon be destroyed by the Archduke himself. The large door opens again as young Ferda Rosnova arrives at the scene. Ferda walks calmly through the hall, accompanied by his maid. The young man looks at an open book, wondering if he must meet the lords now. The maid answers that it is something he will eventually have to do. Ferda reads in a book about the source of evil and the Demon King's birth. The text recounts the story of the black dragon Godwin and who broke his breath. The maid confirms that due to this feat, her master earned the Archduchess title. She explains that as her consort, the young man will manage the Eastern Lords. The maid summarizes that her master handles outside work while he manages internal affairs. Ferda asks himself in surprise if he just became the lady of the house. He finds it weird gaining such power so soon, but decides to meet the lords. The young man enters the hall and states he will soon be Archduchess Valdreva's consort. Looking at everyone around, our guy asks how he should address them in the meeting. Seeing his firm stance, lords note hierarchy gets decided in the greeting. A white-bearded lord smiles, saying they all rule under the Archduke's light. He adds it is natural to respect a future consort, but notes a detail. The bearded man notes the lords pledged loyalty long before the kid was born. Given that seniority, he suggests the consort show proper courtesy as well. The kid asks if that is their answer on treating them with respect or as subordinates. With a cold glare, our guy demands a straight answer to that question. The old lord hesitates, answering it is right for the consort to view them as subordinates. The young man states that even in office, he will not alter territory administration much. One morgue slams the table, asking if he implies they exploit the citizens. Raising his hand, the kid calmly replies it was just a misunderstanding and slip of the tongue. Staring back, the lord angrily thinks he now gets why his family abandoned him. Standing up, the man points a finger and tells a one-circle mage to respect superiors. Hearing he is a one-circle mage, our guy simply murmurs that it is not bad. The lord turns furious, wondering how such a weak mage dares speak like that. The man gets angrier knowing a 4-circle mage receives respect anywhere, overflowing with magic energy. He vows to teach that arrogant brat a lesson. Seeing his reaction, the kid raises his hand with a proposal the lord might like. Raising his hand, the young man proposes a match to test a 1-circle mage. The duel takes place between a 1-circle mage and a 4-circle mage. Spectators comment the outcome is obvious, wondering if he will go easy. The maid observes the scene without showing much surprise. Both opponents stand in the center of the arena, ready to fight. The young man asks his opponent what kind of magic he plans to use. The man grows annoyed, complaining about revealing his trump card. The smug opponent says the kid must be scared to hear his choice of spell. He announces he will use the 4th-tier spell named Magic Blast. The crowd gasps, wondering if the young man can survive such destruction. Our guy replies that the only spell he can cast is Mana Shot. The opponent laughs, asking if that is enough to win the fight. Staying calm, the young man raises his hand and says he knows plenty about it. The lord loses patience and angrily gathers his magic energy. A large magic mark lights up on the ground as he vows to erase his rival. The kid senses the killer intent, noticing his foe boosting the spell in anger. Our guy just comments it is a shame while readying 4 energy spheres. The lord widens his eyes, stunned by what takes place. The young man declares the outcome decided, holding his monospheres. Several magic spheres shoot down as the opponent tries to build a shield. The lord raises his hands in fear, seeing the attack coming his way. The energy beam strikes the nearly completed magic circle directly. The powerful magic slams into the shield, shattering its structure. Terrified, he realizes the magic circle was shattered with ease. The heavy impact drops the man to his knees on the ground. Seeing his technique undone, he is amazed that anyone could pull that off. His hands tremble slightly as he supports his weight on the floor. The defeated mage stays kneeled, breathing with great difficulty. He internally laments losing the battle in such a manner. The young man slowly approaches and asks if his rival forfeits. Staring at the winner, the man displays a look of total shock. Squinting his eyes, he thinks to himself that he wants to get stronger. The mage accepts defeat and decides to do whatever it takes for power. Spectators comment in shock that a level 1 user beat a level 4. A girl nearby firmly tells doubts to gouge their own eyes out. The winner extends a hand to help his rival, praising his skills. The man shakes his hand, stating it was an honor meeting the consort. The kid asks his name, and he introduces himself as Thessalos Vulture. Hearing the name, our guy remembers him and asks if the man knows him. The kid responds seriously that he knows him as a former benefactor. Thessalos shows surprise, asking when they ever met before. The kid gathers energy and launches a direct attack at his opponent. A precise blow hits the man squarely on the head. The crowd watches in shock at what just took place. Thessalos falls unconscious while the young man simply watches. The young man states he cannot leave him alive, protecting his bride. The body lies still on the ground as surrounding people watch quietly. A detail reveals the badge pinned to the defeated noble's clothes. People around react in fear, covering their faces with their hands. An onlooker points out the duel was over, calling it murder. The winner's face gets stained with blood as he looks around. He walks near the fallen body while the crowd shifts nervously. Our guy says the man deserved death, as living would sadden the Duchess. Confused, the men nearby ask what death has to do with the Duchess. Smiling, the kid explains Grand Duchess Valdrova wants humans happy. He keeps walking, explaining that Thessalos acted against her wish. A spectator listens, finding the whole thing ridiculous. Outraged, she thinks the boy eliminated a lord over something unproven. The kid coldly responds that he does not care about others' reactions. A carriage rolls down the road, wheels kicking up dust. Inside the carriage, our guy holds his head, feeling intense dizziness. He realizes his head is spinning and tries to compose himself. The kid reflects he did not expect to meet Thessalos Vulture right there. He complains the mana shot drained him and the moving carriage nauseates him. The maid praises his action, calling eliminating the loyal subject magnificent. The kid asks if she means Thessalos, and she confirms his loyalty to the Grand Duke. Our guy finds that troublesome, remembering the man telling him to obey. Guided by the maid, he reflects lords line their pockets as the front collapses. Our guy decides the marriage can happen since he had the right to eliminate him. He rests his hand on his forehead, trying to relieve motion sickness. The young man recalls that right now Thessalos would be committing a crime. The carriage nears the castle at sunset as the sun lowers on the horizon. The butler bows at the entrance to welcome guests from the Grand Duke's castle. Our guy calmly tells the terrified butler that the lord of the place is dead. The maid hands a wrapped bag to the butler, who looks confused. She orders the object hung in a visible spot near the front gate. The butler opens the package and realizes it is his lord's severed head. The castle grounds appear at nightfall as silence takes over the area. The two enter Thessalos's room, noting how empty it feels. The young man searches the room hoping to find proof of the Lord's evil nature. The kid says he considered ending the engagement but needed that head back. He runs his hand over the floor, trying to locate a hidden switch. Right after that, he asks the maid to take a step back. The girl clenches her fist tightly and strikes the floor violently. The impact destroys the floor, creating a huge crater in the room. She notes the passage is open and invites the young man down. Both descend stone stairs leading directly into a dark underground lair. A heavy metallic scent fills the air as soon as they reach the basement. The place turns out to be a secret lab filled with human and monster remains. A strange symbol marks the area, pointing to demon worshippers. The site holds records of humans trading humanity for demonic power. Several territory soldiers appear chained up with monster parts. The maid gets disgusted seeing that psychopath begged for death. Our guy notes humans are untrustworthy and following demons is a major crime. Next, he asks the girl how she knew the exact location of this place. The young man widens his eyes upon finding documents scattered around. The papers detail Thessalos's method for infinite mana cultivation. A hooded figure appears in old notes stating monsters generate mana. Records show mana extracted from creatures is usually impure and useless. The alchemist wondered if recreating this could generate endless pure mana. Thessalou celebrates, claiming the process creates endless magic. He plans to use his monster army to crush the nobles who exiled him. The alchemist laughs alone, thinking he draws closer to becoming an archmage. In the shadows, someone watches closely and decides to take it for revenge. Our protagonist now holds the same ancient method he used to rank up in the past. He realizes researching this again would easily help him reach the top. The girl nearby notes the researcher is dead, so no one will know if he takes it. She points out this is the dream chance any human would want to gain power. Without hesitation, our guy replies he will not take that with him. He then orders the girl to destroy everything inside that lab. Surprised by the order, she asks if he will not use all that magic knowledge. The kid responds that changing the magic world with that research is useless. He prefers destroying it now so Thessalos stops suffering for that power. The girl stares at him as she hears the command to burn it all down. She simply nods, confirming the request is easy to carry out. The girl uses blue flames to ignite the laboratory notes. The magical flames spread rapidly, consuming the entire location. Fire engulfs the room as he reflects magic carries his creator's feelings. Thessalos hated the Empire, corrupting his magic with that same rage. To stop those dark feelings from consuming him again, our guy throws it away. The young man reflects that he must leave behind the person who survived purely on hatred. He watches the blue flames burn everything around him with a calm expression. The white-haired maid thinks her master acts like an unpredictable psychopath. Soon she asks to leave that moldy place while catching her breath. Our guy agrees, noting it would be rude to show up at the ceremony smelling like blood. On engagement day, Archduke Valdrova's castle showcases its grand architecture. The two walk down the hallways chatting while holding papers with their vows. Our protagonist notes that reading self-written vows is a romantic gesture. The maid snaps back, criticizing holding the ceremony in a place worse than a barn. Despite disliking the engagement, she genuinely wishes for Valdrova's happiness. She crosses her arms and scolds the kid to mind his ironed outfit. Our guide takes the chance to ask about the current state of the Archduchy. He points out that local lords have lost all ability to fight on the front lines. With no supervisor around, local nobles just line their pockets. The people suffer military oppression, and revolt could break out anytime. He asks if the issue would be easily fixed if the Archduke stepped in. The maid answers he will soon discover why she avoids interfering. The young man listens to her answer while looking around the room. Several lit candles illuminate the enclosed chamber made of rock walls. The maid asks Lord Ferda to take a seat and wait right there. Lord Ferda kneels before a massive closed door as the ceremony starts. Intense pressure hits the kid, causing sharp discomfort in his chest. The doors begin to open, revealing a creature scanning the area. The maid stands near a small table with a bowl as the beast washes. She holds a clear glass bottle full of liquid to perform a ritual. Liquid pours into the bowl resting on top of the table. Lord Ferda picks up the bowl with both hands and drinks the liquid. He notices right away this is no ordinary drink, as the aura fades. The maid pours more liquid into the bowl as the beast watches closely. The beast approaches the table, causing the bowl to shake constantly. The bowl falls and shatters, spilling liquid as the ritual restarts. Our guy holds the bowl again with a confused look, lost in the process. He wonders how many times this step repeated since he drank so much. Glancing to the side, he realizes he is reaching his physical limit. The maid grits her teeth with an annoyed expression over the scene. She excuses herself for a moment and steps away, leaving him alone. Lord Ferda stays at the table, swaying his body from exhaustion. The angry-looking beast grumbles, asking what he is trying to do. The monster recalls that the Lord insisted on marrying a mortal first. The kid curls up on the floor, claiming he endured the whole ordeal. He asks how he can face his bride if he keeps hiding like that. He hears he must greet his bride confidently without spilling a drop. Right after, the kid stays curled on the floor as the maid opens a door. The maid asks if he heard the roar, and he says it felt like a dragon's breath. She sighs, explaining she acted like this because her master fears humans. The maid clarifies Lord Valdrova avoids humans and never leaves the lair. Our guy is surprised to learn the mighty Valdrova is scared of people. He wonders how the engagement ceremony can work under these conditions. A gloved hand appears, opening the heavy stone door. A hooded figure clad in full armor steps before him. Heavy armor clanks against the stone floor as it nears the young man. The kid watches the giant figure, wondering why she wears armor now. The armor figure kneels before the table and states they will resume. The maid pours liquid into a bowl as the figure recites ritual words. The armor carefully pours the liquid into the bowl. The young man watches the creature slowly raise her gauntlet. The armor lifts its visor, revealing a woman's face. The young man's heart races as he looks at his bride. The armored girl holds the bowl near her face with a pounding heart. She offers a shy smile while glancing up at her fiancé. Our guy's eyes light up as he gazes at his bride up close. He notes the drink erased his fear, while she tailored everything for him, adjusting his stance. The kid says it is time for their written vows. Looking at the paper, the young man feels these words hold no real meaning. He says though she knows him little, he knows her through her divine heart. Through that heart, he saw her get betrayed, yet carry out her duty noble. She embraced those who hated her and stood firm to guide his path. Because of that, our guy swears an oath on the spot. Just as she gave her heart, the kin vows to do the same. He offers his heart to his ruler, calling her his everything. The kid mentions that what he says next was not written in his vows. He states it is a huge honor to be engaged to someone so beautiful. The maid squeezes her hands, embarrassed by the declaration. The kid asks if it is her turn for vows, but notices the silence. The armored figure suddenly stands up, leaving the young man surprised. She turns her back and starts hurrying away. The armor wobbles briskly toward the room's large doors. The heavy doors slam shut right after that. The maid announces the ceremony is over and he can head back. Our guy wonders in his mind what came over Lord Ferda. The maid apologizes to her master, asking to isolate for 3 days of training. She clasps her hands, thinking with relief that her master is amazing. Confused thoughts cross her mind on how he fooled his rival like that. She notes the upper hand belonged to her master all along. Right after, she stands speechless, not knowing what to think. Next, the girl asks if holding the papers was truly his intention. The giant red dragon stares at the papers on the floor as the maid watches. Papers cover the floor as the beast regrets failing to recite the oath. The maid asks why she failed to do so. The dragon confesses she lacked confidence in the moment. She explains she lacked the courage to look into those eyes and speak. The beast recalls seeing the kid kneeling holding vows with a steady voice. Remembering that face made her mind go completely blank. The maid listens as the dragon grows emotional over the memory. She apologizes for bringing up the topic on such an important day. The maid advises accepting disappointment facing this scenario. She notes Lord Ferda became official fiancé, managing eastern lands for her. The beast notes humans change once gaining power, like the third prince. The dragon watches quietly with a serious gaze. She asks forgiveness for old memories, noting it is her best advice. The moon shines as a message warns mortals are destined to fade someday. Our guy looks out the window, keeping that feeling hidden in his chest. The engagement ends, and he realizes he is truly engaged to Valdrova. Lying in bed, he feels that the entire experience is unreal. The kid recalls being consumed by hatred past, leaving room for nothing else. But this time, things turned out differently. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he remembers that moment. He wants to savor that feeling again and again. A red circle glows on his chest as he wonders what that emotion means. The narrative explains an unruly circle causes self-ruin, but fuels growth. Carrying a bag for woods, he thinks climbing that peak again is easy. The circle requires mental strength, though his current mage level is low. His willpower overflows because he reached archmage level in his past life. He rotates all his mana without wasting a single drop. Soon he stacks energy to form a second circle, stepping closer to her. A shocked voice asks if he reached the second circle in just 3 days. The maid praises his growth, noting he locked his door. She asks if red circle mages usually grow this fast. He replies it depends on the person and comes with a side effect. As new circles form, a mage must chase greater stimulation. Ferda explains vivid emotions embed circles deeper, just as hate did before. He states he kept wandering for things to hate even after revenge ended. The maid notes this is the king's room where he acts for the Archduke. Our guy notes neat office details despite being in a dragon fortress. He lets out a sigh right after assessing the workspace. Sitting at the desk, he begins his initial duties as Archduke Regent. Valdrova's domain currently suffers near abandonment by the Archduke. He notes lords act cautiously around him after Thessalas got exposed. Paperwork became much easier thanks to Rory's assistance. Ferda starts sending letters to known lords to formalize his status. He writes that he intends to see the recipients far more often now. The official notice states he will manage internal affairs without debate. Attention turns to monsters contaminating crops and harming locals. Though disaster creatures are held back, smaller monsters still slip through. Ferda concludes he must recruit new talent to deal with these issues. The maid raises the paper with a curious look upon receiving it. The document lists Bernal Marquis Zed Swallow Echidna Filius and Hellas. She asks with surprise if they must recruit the first candidate in person. The journey leads to Shularia, known as the City of Scholars. The route brings the group to the large, tree-lined Scholar City. Ferda notes their target is unknown talent, so finding him takes effort. The maid asks if that list was written randomly without thought. Ferda assures her that compiling that info took a long time. In his past life, that paper served as his kill list. He analyzed every success and flaw to plan revenge on those targets. During intense hatred, he sought reasons to despise everyone. Looking back, he realizes it was all pure paranoia. Now the real problem is finding someone specific in this place. A street vendor appears, drawing their attention with loud shouts. He offers sweet snacks popular among local academy students. Ferda approaches the vendor, asking if graduates visit often. Next, he asks if the vendor knows the guy called the Sloppy Scholar. The vendor replies the nickname is famous, but his memory for faces is weak. After learning the price, the maid decides to buy 3 fruit skewers. Both wait quietly while the vendor prepares the requested sweets. The man hands over skewers covered in shiny sweet syrup. The skewers show fresh fruit pieces coated in candied sugar. The maid's eyes widen as she stares at the skewers with curiosity. Ferda is surprised to see her enjoying that sweet as she eats. Thinking she was cold, he discovers she can act childlike. The maid eats eagerly while the young man simply watches. She quickly changes her mind, pulling food away with suspicion. Nervous, she offers a skewer, saying he can eat it all if he wants. The street darkens gradually as old buildings surround a path. A candle flame flickers in the dark, swaying in the soft breeze. Inside the dark room, the man drops to his knees after a heavy impact. Kneeling in the dark with sweat mixed in ashes, he helplessly watches years of research turn to dust, knowing ruin has just begun.